The great senator from Iowa.
2 weeks ago, I talked about Lithuania, Independence Day. Yesterday, Estonia's Independence Day. Today, I have another country, but I don't want my colleagues to think that I'm going to be speaking about the Independence Day of all 200 nations on the face of this earth. In fact, I know very few of their Independence Day. But because the United States and my state of Iowa has a close relationship with Kosovo, I want to recognize that Tuesday, February the 17th, was that republic's Independence Day. That is the 18th anniversary of Kosovo's Declaration of Independence in the year 2008. Also, next month will mark 15 years of Kosovo's Iowa National Guard partnership. Many Iowa National Guard members have served in Kosovo, starting with a NATO mission there to working with the Kosovo Security Force as part of the National Guard State Partnership Program. Both my state of Iowa and Kosovo have found this partnership to be very beneficial, so much so that it has grown into a whole sister state relationship. Our Governor Reynolds and the president of the Kosovo exchange visit and keep in contact, and that close working relationship exceeds down to other Iowa and Kosovo government officials. Kosovo and Iowa have also developed close ties in areas like trade and education, in addition to the national security concerns of both countries. People from Kosovo have attended Iowa's educational institutions, and Kosovo has even established a consulate in our capital city of Des Moines. When you look at the polling of which countries have a favorable impression on the United States, Kosovo often comes up on top. I'm proud that my state has such a close relationship with arguably the most pro-American country in the world. Our state and the country of Kosovo both benefit from the ties that we continue to build. I know that both Iowans and people of Kosovo cherish our partnership, and I look forward to that partnership continuing to grow. I yield the floor. Suggest the absence of a quorum. I don't need a copy.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alston-Brooks.
Who made that resolution? Majority Leader,
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the quorum call be suspended.
without objection.
Mr. President, last July, Republicans passed the landmark Working Families Tax Cuts into law. This is a bill that is full of wins for the American people. It delivers safer streets, puts more money in Americans' pockets, and it creates new opportunities to get ahead. Mr. President, as they file their taxes this year, hardworking Americans are beginning to see just how significant the tax relief in this bill is for them. Last week, I was home in South Dakota, and I heard directly from South Dakotans about the impact the Working Families Tax Cuts is having in our state. I visited manufacturing facilities. I talked to business owners. I even met with some accountants about what they're seeing as they file returns for their clients. And one thing is clear: the Working Families Tax Cuts is working for South Dakota. Mr. President, last week I joined a roundtable at Montgomery's in Sioux Falls hosted by the South Dakota Retailers Association. I heard from a number of local businesses, from our car dealerships to a cupcake shop. And business owners from around South Dakota had positive things to say about the Working Families Tax Cuts. Todd Ferris, a Pizza Ranch franchise in Sioux Falls, hailed the much-needed certainty provided by the new tax law. Pro-growth provisions like bonus depreciation, research and development expensing, and the 199A small business deduction are now permanent, meaning businesses like Todd's can plan for the future and invest in their operations and in their employees. Jim Lake, who owns car dealerships around South Dakota, said that 100% bonus depreciation enabled them to build a large addition to one of his dealerships and hire 10 new employees. The owner of Harms Oil also talked about the significant investment from bonus depreciation that benefits South Dakota businesses and the communities they serve. And Paul Force from Agtegra Cooperative talked about how the 199A small business deduction is directly helping South Dakota farmers. He said his cooperative has opted to pass more than $100 million in 199A benefits directly to South Dakota farmers since the deduction was created in 2017. And the farmers have invested that savings into equipment, infrastructure, and jobs. And then there's the death tax that we passed. Mr. President, the death tax relief that we passed, and I mentioned at this roundtable, was at Montgomery's Furniture Store in Sioux Falls. And I think it's worth noting that Montgomery's has been a family-owned business since 1888, a year before South Dakota became a state. It's currently run by the fourth and fifth generations, and the South Dakota sixth generation is learning the ropes. Family-run businesses like Montgomery's aren't unique in our state. South Dakota is home to a number of family-owned businesses and family farms and ranches that have been passed down from one generation to the next. And thanks to the Working Families Tax Cuts, hardworking Americans who run their own businesses are breathing a sigh of relief, because this landmark bill protects a lot more family-owned businesses from a potentially devastating death tax bill when the business passes to the next generation, as well as costly estate planning expenses. And that is something that matters to a lot of folks who came to the roundtable last week, and for business owners, farmers, and ranchers across South Dakota. Mr. President, I've talked this morning about how the Working Families Tax Cuts provide tax relief to South Dakota businesses. Those benefits are significant. But I should note that what most excited the business owners at last week's roundtable wasn't the tax benefits for themselves. It was the benefits that their employees and their customers are going to see. Todd Ferris, the Pizza Ranch franchise, said this, and I quote, "The two that are going to help us the most, or at least our employees, are the no tax on tips and the no tax on overtime, which will give our employees more money, and we'll actually be able to give them more overtime." Melissa Johnson, who owns Oh My Cupcakes in Sioux Falls, said of her employees, and I quote, "With the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, it has already resulted in my employees having higher tax refunds so that they can buy things they need for their families. My head chef just bought a baby crib because of her higher refund. It's really affected my team in positive ways, end quote. And Eric Sinclair, who owns Montgomery's, had this to say, and I quote, "Anytime the general consumer can get more back in their pockets with tax cuts, we hope that they come into our stores and maybe buy something nice for their home, make their surroundings even more beautiful," end quote. Mr. President, by all accounts, those bigger tax refunds are beginning to land in hardworking Americans' bank accounts. The IRS is reporting a significant increase in the average refund this year. And just recently, I got this message from a retiree in South Dakota who I wrote, and I quote again, "Just did my income taxes, putting more money in my pocket than last year. I am not a billionaire or a millionaire, or even a hundreds of thousandaire, just a retired senior citizen who appreciates that the middle class gets a break once in a while," end quote. Mr. President, that's what the Working Families Tax Cuts is all about. And whether you're a small business owner, a farmer, a rancher, or a senior citizen, or someone just trying to make ends meet and provide for your family, the Working Families Tax Cuts puts more money in your pocket, empowering Americans to spend, invest, and save their money how they see fit. And it's setting our country and the American people up for a much brighter future. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I suggest the absence of quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsterbrooks.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader,
I again ask that the quorum call be suspended.
without objection.
And I move to proceed to legislative session.
Questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. Ayes do have it. The motion is agreed to.
Mr. President, I move to proceed to calendar number 343, H.R. 6644.
Clerk will report.
Motion to proceed to calendar number 343, H.R. 6644, an act to increase the supply of housing in America and for other purposes.
Mr. President, I send a cloture motion to the desk.
Clerk will report.
Cloture motion, we the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the motion to proceed to calendar 343, H.R. 6644, an act to increase the supply of housing in America and for other purposes, signed by 17 senators as follows.
Mr. President, I ask consent the reading of the names be waived.
Without objection.
And I ask unanimous consent to waive the mandatory quorum call in relation to the McCormack nomination.
Without objection.
Mr. President,
Regret, Leader.
Mr. President, today, excuse me, one second. President,
Democrat Leader.
today, U.S. and Iranian officials are holding talks in Geneva as America stands at the brink of another potential conflict in the Middle East. Earlier this week, Senate leaders and I met with Secretary Rubio, and everyone is asking what the plan is with respect to Iran. And we're all looking for answers that the administration has refused to give. The issues we discussed in our classified briefing were very serious, and the American people deserve to hear it directly from the President and his administration. The administration should come clean and tell the American people exactly what the goal is in Iran. I've always said that confronting Iran and halting its nuclear ambitions requires a strategy, clarity, transparency. But thus far, we're getting none of that from the administration. The American people deserve answers. On Epstein, the way Pam Bondi and the Justice Department have handled the release of the Epstein files has all the stench of a cover-up. Yesterday, news outlets reported that several memos detailing a woman's accusation against the president from when she was a minor have been withheld from the public. We know these exit memos exist. An index of all the investigative materials confirm their existence. And under law, the law we passed unanimously here in the Senate, they need to be made public. Pam Bondi does not have the right to pick and choose which Epstein files to release to the public. Protecting the president from embarrassment is not her job. The American people were promised the truth, and Pam Bondi's job is to give Americans full access to the truth. What else is the administration keeping behind a lock and key? Is this incompetence, or is it a full-blown cover-up? Pam Bondi owes the American people some answers. Remember, the law Congress passed had very specific criteria for withholding the Epstein files. Protect victims' identities, protect the integrity of an ongoing investigation, or avoid duplication. Protecting Donald Trump's image does not fit any of these buckets. So I ask Pam Bondi, whose side are you on? The victims or the perpetrators? Now, the state of delusion and Democrats' plan to lower costs. There has never been a State of the Union where the president spoke for so long but had so little substance, so little truth. Tuesday night was 2 hours of Donald Trump's state of delusion. He's in a bubble. He doesn't know what's going on with the American people. All he wants to do is stroke his own ego. Donald Trump told the country that everything's great, that costs are coming down, that manufacturing is up, that he's going to fix health care, and that we're going to win so much that we don't know what to do. That's what he said. It's amazing. I ask very seriously, who else in America feels this way, that we're winning so much we don't know what to do? Maybe billionaires, but that's it. Today I want to talk about a couple of things that Donald Trump didn't mention during his 2-hour state of delusion. For one, Donald Trump didn't talk about how he'll bring down the cost of living. Ground beef is up 11%. Coffee is up 14%. Rent is up. And thanks to Donald Trump's tariffs, American families are spending over $1,700 more this year. $1,700 out of the average working family's pocket. That is a heck of a lot of money when people are struggling to pay the bills. Where is Donald Trump's plan to fix any of this? He said nothing. In a moment, I'll talk about what Democrats plan to do about this. But Donald Trump also talked about manufacturing. But he failed to mention that America is not creating manufacturing jobs. We are bleeding them. So many lies. He says we're growing manufacturing jobs. Well, look at this chart. These are the number of manufacturing jobs lost in the last year. In May, in June, in July, in August, in September, October, November, and December, we lost in every month. We lost manufacturing jobs, and Donald Trump just lies about it. This is the state of manufacturing in the United States. Manufacturing jobs are down by 100,000. We have shed manufacturing jobs every single month right after Trump's Liberation Day. Yet he lies about it. He just makes it up. Donald Trump has this uncanny ability which misserves human beings and particularly misserves presidents. He thinks by saying it's so, it's true. And everyone will just believe him. Well, his minions believe him no matter what he says. But no one else. He talks past America. Again, we lost manufacturing jobs, Donald Trump. We didn't gain them. Trump also failed to speak about his plan to fix health care, because he has none. Donald Trump claims he will always protect Medicare, but that's false. CBO found that thanks to Donald Trump's big, ugly bill, the Medicare Trust Fund will run out 12 years sooner than before. In other words, Donald Trump has accelerated Medicare's demise by more than a decade with one single bill, which every Republican voted for in this chamber, but no Democrat, because we knew the damage to health care he was doing. Donald Trump also failed to mention anything about China. It's the second leading power in the world. The United States has lots of issues with China. Well, when was the last time a president of the United States avoided talking about America's biggest rival on the world stage during the State of the Union? The way Donald Trump handled China is an embarrassment. He promised to be tough on China, but he's playing with them with kids' clothes, giving them critical American technology, and his tariffs have failed to win any meaningful concessions. It doesn't have to be this way. Americans deserve better than a president and a Republican Party that thinks affordability is a made-up word. Later this morning, I'll join my colleagues, Senators Cantwell, Lujan, Booker, and Welch, and experts from across the country to talk about how we lower food costs, how we make trips to the grocery store less painful for families, and how we fix the structural problems that keep prices high, like the consolidation in the food industry. Today's roundtable is part of a larger Senate effort by Senate Democrats to all year long talk about how we will drive costs down, because we don't believe affordability is some kind of hoax. He called it a hoax. That was insulting to America. He seems to have fun insulting people. That's what it seemed like up there on the State of Delusion stage that he occupied. Affordability is the most real thing in the lives of the American people economically. In the weeks and months ahead, we're going to go issue by issue, taking the time to dig in and rolling out serious practical battle plans to bring costs down. We started a month ago with housing, and I'm proud of the work Democrats are doing to lower housing costs. We'll soon take on energy and electricity. We'll take on child care. We'll take on health care. Lowering costs will be the Senate Democrats' North Star in 2026. Let me repeat that so America and our Republican colleagues hear it. Lowering costs will be Senate Democrats' North Star in 2026. And the conversations we have today about high food prices will lay the groundwork for real legislation. So when Democrats have the majority, we can deliver real relief and bring down the cost of living. I yield the floor. Note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks.
President,
Majority Whip,
I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be vitiated.
without objection.
Mr. President, this week, President Trump called attention and paid tribute to families who lost loved ones who were killed by illegal immigrant criminals. Now, these are known as angel families. On Monday, President Trump declared February 23rd National Angel Family Day. On Tuesday, during the State of the Union, when we were both there, the President honored a heartbroken angel mother, a mother who was there in the audience from the state of Texas, because her 16-year-old daughter, Lisbeth Medina, was brutally murdered by an illegal immigrant. Lisbeth's killer had a criminal background, should not have been in our country. Just like Laken Riley, the nursing student who had been brutally murdered by an illegal immigrant, Lisbeth dreamed also of becoming a nurse. Think of all the lives that could have been helped and saved had hers not been stolen away. Republicans are determined to ensure that no more families are forced to feel this sort of pain. During his State of the Union address, President Trump asked a single and powerful question. He said to the entire chamber, everyone, Republicans, Democrats, everyone there, he said, if you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. He then presented the statement to the American people. This is the statement. He said, the first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal immigrants. So what happened? Republicans stood up and cheered, as should every American citizen, for putting American citizens first. Not a single Democrat that I saw stood up. They sat on their hands. They sat in the chamber. They refused to stand to the important statement of the first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. To me, that revealing moment said it all. Now, I've said it many times before, I'll say it again, Democrats care more about illegal immigrant criminals, every one of them on the other side of the aisle care more about illegal immigrant criminals than they do about the safety and the security of the American people. That's wrong, Mr. President. That's not what our country is all about. Mr. President, we're now 13 days into the shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. It's another Democrat shutdown. They're the ones that shut it down, a shutdown against American safety and security. That's who those people are. That's what they believe in. That's why they would not stand the other night during the President's State of the Union address to support American citizens as opposed to illegal immigrant criminals. Look, the Department of Homeland Security stands between illegal immigrant criminals and the American people, between terrorists and American citizens. And yet, this is the very department that the Democrats have decided to shut down. We funded 96% of the government through the usual approach that we do, the Appropriations Committee, and they refused that last 4% of government because that is the 4% that deals with the Department of Homeland Security. So today, these heroes that protect American lives, they are working without pay. It's wrong. We're talking about TSA agents, Secret Service agents, the Coast Guard who patrol our coastal waters, our nation's cybersecurity, 260,000 people in all working without pay. The Democrats have shut down the Department of Homeland Security, or at least refused to pay them. They're still working, but they're not getting paid because of the Democrats. Funding the Department of Homeland Security is about protecting American citizens. That's the fundamental role of government. It's not coddling illegal immigrant criminals, which is what the Democrats seem to want to do, especially criminals who brutally murder American citizens. Republicans have offered fair terms to fully and immediately fund the Department of Homeland Security. What do the Democrats say? Well, they continue to make unreasonable and unserious demands. Democrats want the Department of Homeland Security to remain closed. It's very evident from their statements. Democrats have submitted a laundry list of demands in order for the government to fund the Department of Homeland Security. They demand harsh restrictions on cooperation between the federal government, state government, and local officials. Mr. President, you'd want them all to work together. I mean, wouldn't it be better if we coordinated efforts at the state, local, and national levels? Of course. Democrats are demanding an outright ban on immigration enforcement at so-called sensitive locations. So they have a list of sensitive locations. One, Mr. President, astonishingly, the first time this has ever appeared in any of their list of demands, but it's now here, they want a sensitive location for protection of illegal immigrants to be polling places. Why are illegal immigrants in polling places? It's illegal for them to vote. That's who the Democrats are. That's who their support is. That's what they're trying to do, protect illegal immigrant criminals. Their demands are driven not by the protection and safety of the American people. It's for the protection and safety of illegal immigrants, and it's just flat out wrong. It flies in the face of who we are as American citizens. Mr. President, the Democrat demands are driven not by the traditional Democrats of yesterday. Oh, no, they are driven by the extreme Democrats of today. And it's the extreme Democrats of today, Mr. President, who have captured and are controlling today's Democrat Party. The Democrats of yesterday is gone. This is a party under the control of the radical left, a party that calls for defunding the police, a party that encourages defying the law, and a party that refuses to stand when they're asked to support the citizens of America. Mr. President, the Democrats' demands, they are reckless, they are radical, and they are dangerous. The Democrats demand compromise public safety. They fly in the face of the rule of law. They turn America into a sanctuary country. That's not what the American people want. The danger is real, Mr. President. The cartels remain a serious and deadly threat. Just this week in Mexico, they launched a violent new drug war. This violence started after the Mexican military, encouraged and assisted by the United States, eliminated one of Mexico's most powerful drug lords. As the cartels spread chaos across Mexico, they also seek to harm law enforcement officers inside America, inside our own country. ABC News has now reported that the Mexican cartels have placed cash bounties on ICE and Border Patrol officers living and working here in America. Cartels paying for damage, physical damage, of ICE and Border Patrol agents serving here at home. They actually have a payment list. They offer $2,000 to dox an agent, including photos of the agent's family or details about the agent's family. They're paying $5,000 to $10,000 to kidnap or assault an enforcement officer, and $50,000 to murder a high-ranking official. That's what the Mexican cartels are up to these days, at a time that the Democrats here stand for the illegal immigrants but remain seated in terms of support for the American people. So think about it. Criminal cartels in Mexico have put a price on the heads of our law enforcement officers here at home in America. And yet the pro-crime Democrats here in the United States Senate, as part of their list of demands, are demanding that ICE officers remove their masks in the face of such assaults, making it easier for the cartels to get what they want, to go after their families. Look, Republicans are not at all going to accept these dangerous demands from the Democrats. Demands that make our communities less safe and demands that put our enforcement officers at increased risk. Mr. President, Republicans here in this body and across the country and most American citizens agree with President Trump. It is the number one duty of any government, and certainly ours, the number one duty of any government to protect its citizens, not illegal aliens. And Republicans will stand every day for the safety and security of our nation's citizens. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Senator Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. President. With me today is one of my colleagues from my office, Ms. Candace Humble. She's a member of my communications team. She is not responsible for anything I say. I'm losing her. She's not leaving government. She's going to work for the White House. Today is her last day, and I asked her to come down so that I could thank Candace publicly for all her extraordinary work and for giving so much to the people of Louisiana and the American people. About 90%, Mr. President, of my personal and political philosophy is don't hurt someone unless they're trying to hurt you first. Don't take other people's stuff and leave me alone. Let me live my life, exercising the free will and responsibility that God gave. Which leads me to my first topic, Mr. President. Iran. I'm not talking about the people of Iran. I'm talking about the political and religious leadership of the government of Iran. I'm talking about the Ayatollah and his followers. And in America, we separate government from religion. Not in Iran, thanks to the Ayatollah. The government tells you what religion to practice. The government is the religion. Now, everybody has the right to believe what they want. I'll tell you what the Ayatollah believes. He's Muslim. But his strain of Islam says that if you do not agree with his interpretation of God, then you deserve to die. You do. And he acts on that belief. Now, let me say again, the Ayatollah is entitled to believe what he wants. I was raised a Presbyterian. My parents founded 2 Presbyterian churches. When Becky and I got married, Becky was a Methodist. I was a Presbyterian. We compromised. I became a Methodist. I'm entitled to believe what I want. But the Ayatollah not only thinks that I'm going to hell because I don't agree with his religion, he wants to kill me. He wants to kill Americans and Israelis and anybody who does not believe in his jihad and drink our blood out of a boot. And he's acted on that. I don't need to tell you, Mr. President. I don't need to tell you. And he has acted on that. And that's not acceptable. Now, a lot of the people in Iran, the good people in Iran, don't agree with Ayatollah. If they disagree with him too loudly, he just kills them. Now the Ayatollah, it's actually been the case for the last, 10, 15, 20 years. The Ayatollah has decided he wants a nuclear warhead. Why should we care? You know, I hear from some of my fellow Americans all the time, why do we need to be involved in Iran? Why should we care? Well, number one, we're not trying to start a war in Iran. The president is trying to end a war in Iran. If the Ayatollah gets a nuclear weapon, he will use it. He could use it against America. He could use it against Israel. I don't know who he'll use it against, and I hope I'm wrong, but he will use it. And you know what else will happen? As soon as he gets a nuclear weapon, Saudi Arabia is going to get a nuclear weapon. And the UAE is going to get a nuclear weapon. And Japan's going to get a nuclear weapon. And South Korea, and I could go on and on and on. And the more nuclear weapons you have in the world, the more likely you are to have a nuclear war. But that's not the only thing the Ayatollah has done since he became the Ayatollah. He exports terrorism. He was the person behind Hamas and Hezbollah that have killed so many people throughout the world, not just in the Middle East, but across the world, including but not limited to Americans. That's why we ought to care. The Ayatollah also has conventional ballistic missiles and is building more as we speak. Now, those missiles can't reach America yet, but they're working on one, and they can sure reach our military bases in the Middle East. And they can sure reach Israel. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. That's why we should care. And finally, the Ayatollah, if you disagree with him, and we've seen it happen on TV, we don't know how many people he's hung in the last 6 months. We don't know how many people he's tortured. I've seen estimates as high as 50,000. So that's what this business with Iran is all about. We're not trying to be the world's policeman. We're trying to stop the Ayatollah from being the world's policeman, who's getting a lot of support from President Xi Jinping in China and Vladimir Putin in Russia and Kim Jong-un in North Korea. So that's where we find ourselves, trying to stop this war. And to the Ayatollah, I would say, Ayatollah, you're entitled to believe what you want. You can hate me. You can believe that. I know you hate me and what I stand for. You know how I sleep at night knowing that you hate me? With the fan on. That's your right. But you can't act on that belief. Put down the nuclear weapons. Put down the nuclear enrichment. Stop exporting terrorism to Hamas and Hezbollah. End your missile program. Stop killing and torturing your people. That's all we want. And he's doing that as we speak. He's at war. We're trying to stop it. I'm not about to tell the president, give the president any advice. He has intelligence that I don't have. And I respect the fact that he's being very, very, very deliberate and careful in making a decision. If we make a deal with Iran, let's make sure we have a protocol to enforce it. Because my experience in watching the Ayatollah through the years, I wouldn't trust this man if he was 3 days dead. I wouldn't trust him if he was 3 days dead. Anybody whose religion tells them that in order to be saved, they've got to go kill hundreds of millions of people, you can believe it if you want. But as far as I'm concerned, it's time to get a new religion. And that's what we're doing in Iran. Let me say it again. We're not trying to start a war. This war began a long time ago. We're trying to end it. Our president presiding today knows exactly what I talked about. He served honorably, at great physical, mental, and emotional expense in the Middle East. That's what we're trying to stop. Topic number 2, New Orleans. I love New Orleans. I'm not from New Orleans. I used to live there. Met my wife there. Used to live uptown. Used to practice law in New Orleans. I taught a little while in law school in Baton Rouge, but my first teaching job was going to be in New Orleans before I moved to Baton Rouge to get into government. I love New Orleans. one of the most unique cities in the entire world. So what I'm about to say, I say from my heart with love and affection, and as a former resident and frequent visitor. Here's my message to the political leadership of New Orleans. Get your act together. Get your act together. I don't go to New Orleans that I don't hear from my people down there, we need affordable housing. We need affordable housing. We need affordable housing. Let me tell you something. We spend a lot of money on affordable housing in America. Billions every year. The American taxpayer. Not state money, not local money. This is American taxpayer money. And we take that money and send it to states and local governments to build affordable housing for people who can't afford a home because the American people are so generous. And we do that through what's called housing agencies. Every state that I'm aware of has a housing agency, and many local governments have a housing agency. And the state housing agencies and the local housing agencies take this federal money and use it, given to them out of the goodness of the American taxpayer's heart, and use it to create affordable housing. And we've been doing that for years in New Orleans. There's a local housing authority called we call it HANO. The Housing Authority in New Orleans. It's run by a board of commissioners appointed by the mayor. Last year, I think we gave them $70 million. By we, I mean the American taxpayer. They've been around since 1937. The Housing Authority in New Orleans has a spectacular and impressive record of graft, corruption, mismanagement, incompetence, theft. You think I'm kidding? I came with receipts. It got so bad from 2006 to 2009 that the Housing and Urban Development in 2009 had to take them over, the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development. From 2006 to 2009, the chief financial officer of HANO stole $900,000, taxpayer money. A few years later, the guy running HANO's Section 8 voucher department, he just took a voucher for himself and paid his own rent. Skeleton head got caught. Boy, that really gave us confidence. In 2007, the feds had to step in and investigate. I think in some cases they prosecuted a vendor kickback scheme. In 2014, the director of the Housing Authority of New Orleans was investigated for giving out $1 million in no-bid contracts. Guess who they went to? The director's friends. An audit in 2010 found our auditors couldn't find $7.2 million. I could go on. I can give you a list as long as King Kong's elbow. Now, I'm going to tell you what's the most recent episode that has made me want to stick my head in the oven. We have a housing project in New Orleans called the Gust Homes Complex. It's in a part of our city called Central City. It's pretty big, not particularly well run, but it's pretty big. It's got a 12-story building that houses apartments, and I think they have some townhomes as well. And we provide housing, once again, the American taxpayer, to the elderly and the disabled. They can live there. And the Gust Homes complex, I'll call it Gust Homes, is run by HANO, the Housing Authority in New Orleans, the Board of Commissioners appointed by our mayor. The Housing Authority in New Orleans has an administrator. And I'm not denigrating her. I don't know anything about her. I'm just telling you what's going on. But the board and the administrator of the Housing Authority of New Orleans don't run GUST. They're supposed to. They went and hired a management company to run GUST. And the management company, its overhead is about $8 million a year. I'm not kidding you. That's money that doesn't go to provide housing to people. It goes into their pocket. I was looking at one of their consultants. They hired a consultant. I don't think she works there anymore. A Ms. Sherry, I'm going to mispronounce this name, Mr. President, Singh Suvana. Never met her. I do know that from 2003 to 2024, HANO gave her $660,000 as a consultant. I looked her up. Here's the way she describes herself. I am an author, a grief mentor, and an entrepreneur who has built a career around helping others navigate loss and find spiritual healing. $660,000 to her as a consultant. Isn't that special? Well, now, the management company running, and HANO, they've stopped paying the water bill for the people who live in the house. They've run up a water bill for $1.5 million. They say they don't have the money. And the water company predictably says, well, hey, we're going to cut off your water. What are we going to do with these 310 folks? Elderly, disabled, that the American taxpayer gave money to for their housing. And now HANO's saying, don't pay the water bill. The water bill's wrong. I don't know who's right and who's wrong. But I'll tell you what else HANO is saying. HANO is saying the GUST project is a mess. Even though we've hired consultants out the wazoo and given them money, we've got a big vacancy rate. No kidding. They don't have running water. We've got a big vacancy, and there's too much deferred maintenance, so we want to start over. And by the way, we want the federal government to give us $60 million. When donkeys fly. Now, we got a new mayor in New Orleans. I'm delighted. We've got some new council people. They got to do their job. And I don't want to hear we're not responsible for HANO. The mayor appoints them. Get rid of the thieves. Get rid of the incompetence. Don't come back and ask for more money to fix your mistakes from the American taxpayer. The good people of New Orleans deserve that. They deserve better. Do better. The people living in this complex deserve better. I've had enough. I've just had enough. Fix it. And if you say, well, New Orleans, I know it's a sanctuary city. And they have their political beliefs, and by God, they're entitled to them. That's America. You can believe what you want. Okay? And they may disagree with the current administration in Washington. That's fine, too. This is America. And that's really got nothing to do with this. But you need to clean up your own act first. I don't know, I can't tell you how to do it, but the American people gave it the office. I can't tell you how to do it. Maybe you're going to have to borrow the money. Maybe you're going to have to actually raise taxes on the people of New Orleans. I hope not. But at some point, the money's got to come from somewhere. Get your act together before you come back to me or anybody else in Washington going, you got $60 million lying around. We not only can we not pay the light bill or the water bill, we want to tear the whole thing down and build a new one and have somebody else pay for it. Gag me with a spoon. Anyway, I'm going to miss Candace. Thanks for your good work, Candace. And Mr. President, I suggest the absence of a quorum.
Clerk, call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks.